This episode was so fucking good. Jujutsu Kaisen episode 4. I am not one that's prone to hyperbole, at least I don't think I am. But if by now you are not a fan of the Jujutsu Kaisen, I question your taste in anime. This show is so good. Maybe if you're not a fan of action, I can maybe see why you won't like it from that perspective. But other than that, I don't think there's any reason as to why you wouldn't like this show. So far, it is almost the total package. Now, of course, there's no show that's perfect, but the flaws the show has are so small, they're not even worth mentioning. It is just, I don't know of a better show over this first 4 episodes than Jujutsu Kaisen has been so far. It has just been that good. And episode 4 doesn't mess around. Shit gets real fast. Right off the rip, we're hit with a mutilated body, and then we get Fushiguro hitting Itadori with the hard truth of, not everyone is worth saving. Some people are irredeemable, and not worth your time trying to save. And if that had been the climax of the episode, they go into the building, they discover his mutilated body, they realize how dire the situation is, and then Fushiguro and Itadori have an argument over who is not worth saving. I would have been cool with that just being the whole episode right there. I'd be okay, cool. We get some dramatic moments. It's setting up for future events very well. I say, all right, cool. That's a decent episode. That is not where episode 4 stops at all. After that is when shit really hits the fan. When Nobata got pulled into the floor and Fushiguro turned around to see that his demon dog had already been taken out, I was literally on the edge of my seat because this episode does an amazing job of relaying just how dire their situation was. The looks on Fushiguro's face really showed that he knew how deep of trouble they were in. I mean, the dude was willing to leave Nobata to run out of there, and I can't blame him. He was just that shook. I mean, they were all shook, and like once Nobata got taken, he was like, run, we'll come back to get Nobata later, let's get the hell out of here. And then Itadori gets his hand chopped off, and I was just like, yo, that's not supposed to happen. Your protagonist can't be sustaining injuries like that only 4 episodes in. Now, of course, he regains that hand later in the episode, but in the moment, that was super jarring. I would have never had guessed that he would have got his hand chopped off, because that doesn't happen to your shonen protagonist, or at least not this early on in a show. Protagonists don't sustain major injuries like that early on in the show unless it's something like going to be part of their character going forward. But typically those are going to be like a scar here and there, and it's like, has a backstory to it. It's not getting a hand chopped off. Itadori tries to have the quintessential shonen protagonist moment of, you guys run, get away, and I'll hold it off. But that does not go well for him at all. Once the acknowledgement of his impending doom sets in, he starts crying because he doesn't want to die. And what's the last time you saw a shonen protagonist cry in the face of death and show that kind of vulnerability when faced with death? Goku never cried in the face of death. Ichigo never cried in the face of death. Naruto never cried in the face of death. Yusuke, I'm not saying those characters never cried, but they never cried when the circumstance was them being faced with death. They might have cried over sadness or something else, but they weren't crying because they themselves feared death. And I think that is a great thing to see in this show. And I like that level of vulnerability from a protagonist, because it shows that he fears death. He is not like some always all-encompassing character, like figure that's always brave and just can look death in the eye and say fuck you. Like, no, that's not him at all. He's still a kid who doesn't want to die, and when he's faced with his impending doom, cries. And I think that is very human. I think that's very relatable, and I think that's how 99.9% of people would react to a similar situation. Not only does Itadori show such a level of vulnerability, but he also overcomes his fear. Like, he is faced with death. He doesn't want to die, cries about it because he's just terrified of death. He overcomes that fear and decides, hey, I'm going to just go out swinging. And he musters all of his last bit of energy and this rage, whatever he has at his impending doom, and goes to punch the curse. We see that he's able to harness some kind of new energy or power source. And I'm thinking, okay, here comes another one of those quintessential shonen protagonist moments where he taps into a latent ability and he takes out the threat. Not what happens at all. Again, his last ditch effort amounts to nothing. The curse catches his punch, doesn't do any damage, and he's only saved by Fushiguro getting Nobata out of the building and signaling Itadori that he can release Sukuna. Speaking of Sukuna, the way he took such pleasure in toying with that curse before ultimately killing it gives us a glimpse of just how sick and twisted Sukuna actually is. Like, when he took over Itadori's body, he wasn't even concerned with the curse. He was just trying to think of ways to screw over Itadori. I guess he himself is a curse, so that is to be expected. But from what we learned so far about Sukuna and the general tone of the show, one thing I definitely don't see happening in the future is Itadori and Sukuna developing a relationship similar to what Naruto and Kurama had, where, Kurama was kind of a antagonistic figure to Naruto, but they developed a friendship and understanding. I definitely don't see Itadori and Sukuna developing a relationship, anything like that. Next Friday cannot come fast enough. I am so excited to see what's going to happen in this next episode. Being that Itadori did not retake control of his body, will Fushiguro be able to hold off Sukuna? I don't think so, because Fushiguro is just as powerful enough. So is Gojo Sensei going to pop up and save the day? Like, what's going to happen there? And like, whatever's going to happen, I fully anticipate the next episode to be awesome, because so far every episode we've gotten of it has been awesome. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up. If you didn't, let me know why in the comments. And if you are so inclined to subscribe, again, I would appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.